Hi, we're My Digital Enemy. I'm Kieran.
And I'm Serg.
We're going to be talking about our track bassline sounds. It's gone, yeah.
It was championed by Pete Tong and Toddler T on Radio 1. Got some serious airplay on it. We released it on our label Zulu Records. It's got a bit of an urban sound to it, and it's slightly different to the normal sound we do. But it's got some quite good production techniques in it, I think, which would be good to talk about.
It's very current at the moment, so cool.
So getting straight into it then, the kick drum that we used in this track is actually a sample straight off one of our own sample packs. We've made quite a few for Loop Masters and also for our own label Zulu Records, which are on Sounds to Sample and Beatport.
Yeah.
And,
quite handy having them ready to go, sort of things we've played. I mean, those sounds in clubs, and we know they're sort of fat.
For instance, this kick, like all the kicks on our packs we've made from maybe layering several kicks, like a top end one, a sub one, so we kind of know they're fat.
Yeah.
And so this is off. I think it's the first sample pack we made, which was for Loop Masters. It's called New Tech House.
Yeah.
And that's the kick. This kick has nothing on it because we'd already we'd processed it already when we were making the sample pack. And to be quite honest, I can't actually remember what I did at the time. But
on that kick,
it would be a layered kick. You can hear there's two sounds to it.
It's got like a top knock and a sort of subby bottom kick.
So normally what we'd do is find a subby kick that we liked and also a top knock kind of kick. And we'd get it so they sat together really nicely.
It cut off sort of the really bottom end frequencies, but as Sergey said, we've already done that in the sample pack. So yeah. Next up is the hats. We're going to the hats.
The hats would be the next stage of what we would normally do in a track. We've got a clap there. We're going to the clap, I think.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
The clap's it's from a sample pack. It's got a bright one knob. This is a Waves plugin. Just makes it a little bit brighter.
Yeah, it sort of helps it stand out a bit from. Sometimes they can sound a little dull and not sort of too far back in the mix. So this sort of just helps bringing it out.
It's subtle, but
it's actually it's got a clap and it's got like a skippy snare in there as well. It's like a two sounds just in that one channel.
And we've also EQ'd it. We've added a bit of mid. About 1 kilohertz, and also a bit of top end on it as well, at 10 kilohertz.
Yeah, so we'll move on to the hats. We've got just an off hat there. Not much EQ on it, I don't think. If you're going, it's straight sort of from a sample pack. We just boosted the top end a little bit. It's not overly processed or anything. So.
Yeah, just adding a little bit of top end to it on that. That's the offbeat hat.
And we got the faster sort of 16th notes hats, which sort of like a shaker really. So it's got sort of a main hit and then sort of two quieter hits on it. So
again, this is it's the same kind of EQ as the clap. It's got a little bit of mid added and a little bit of the top frequencies.
Yeah.
So this is the 16th note hat, which it gives a little bit of pace to the groove, really. Yeah. If you listen to it,
It's also slightly swung because it gives it more of a sort of a live feel, if you know what I mean. So we like to give it a bit more of an organic sound by having a sort of a human feel to it. So.
We do tend to swing most of our tracks with 50% on the swing. If you get everything swung the same amount, and then everything locks in. These loops, they're from the same sample pack. Some of these loops, and it's another Loop Masters one. Actually, no, that's one of our own sample packs.
Yeah.
All our stuff tends to be swung to 50%. So we would normally use the quantize would be on 16th notes, and it would be swung to 50%. And generally, we save that within our quantize here as a preset.
Yeah.
So we can swing everything to the same amount. As that's off one of our sample packs, we know it's swung to that anyway.
Yeah. So generally, if we had that and it was from someone else's sample pack or another loop, we'd slice it at the hit points and then just swing it.
Which you can do quite easily in Cubase by going into
hit points
there, and
turn up the threshold and it'll cut it.
You get the threshold to where you want it to slice to, like there's nice because it's cutting all of these ones.
And then just hit create slice and it will chop the whole thing up into separate little events, and then you can swing the whole thing to 50%.
You just re-quantise it after you've chopped it all, which is nice. It tends to be pretty accurate, but sometimes we actually do it manually where you just literally zoom into the part and you just slice it yourself by eye on every beat.
Yeah.
That's it. That way doing it yourself is more accurate.
Yeah.
But just takes a bit more time.
Yeah.
A bit more time consuming. But then again, if you want results, you have to spend time to get them.
Cool. So next is the offbeat hat. That again, it's just from a sample pack. We've made the hat slightly shorter by just cutting it dead slightly there. And I don't think it's literally just got a little bit of a boost on the top end on the EQ, and there's not much else added to that.
Yeah.
So
it sounded good anyway.
Yeah.
So it's pointless adding if you don't need to.
We've then got like a main loop, which sort of, if you play it,
it's quite a sort of garagey swung loop.
That sort of, it gives it sort of a bit of that old school sort of 90s garage feel. That just sort of sits in the background there. It sort of bounces off the other hats quite nicely.
Adds a little bit of an urban flavour to it as well, which is nice.
Yeah, so this was another sort of hat loop that we use with a little clap in there. It's got that sort of 90s vibe, a little bit garagey sounding.
Adds a little urban kind of element to the track.
Gives it a bit of a swing, and it also it sort of sounds a little organic as well, so it gives it a bit more of a live feel. Yeah, next on the hat side is the ride. This again is one that we've used from one of our sample CDs, so it's something that we've sort of made up that we know sort of sounds pretty good anyway. So we haven't really got much, haven't played with the EQs on this. It just fitted nicely into the track how it was. So
we do tend to reuse quite a few of things like a ride, where to be sometimes it's good to have a different one, but quite often you'll be writing a track and you just need a ride in there. You just grab one that you know, it sounds good, and you're like, well, what's the point in changing it now, kind of thing.
It sometimes helps just to keep your sound a bit as well. If you use some elements that you've used in other tracks, but then the track's totally different, it gives it that feel of, that it's your track sort of thing. So sometimes good for that. Obviously we've got a 909 crash in there as well that starts at the beginning of that bar, which just has a slight little reverb on there just to give it a bit of a tail.
Okay, once we got all the drums together, we then went on. We decided it would be nice to add some sort of percussive element to help drive them along a bit. Yeah,
in the mid range, and give it like a bit more of a live feel as well.
So what we did, we got together 3 loops, which are all grouped to make this. It's got a nice sort of percussive driving element to it. Yeah.
Yeah, if you play them each separately, you can hear what makes it up. So
that's the main one, I'd say, that middle one. But then it's got a little shuffly one, but the top one's a shuffly one. And then it's got a lower one. And together they all go through this group.
It's got a little bit of reverb on there just to make it sound like it's all in the same room, basically.
You can hear it sounds a lot less lively with it without it on.
It's also got Homicide on there, just using the compression slightly, and Vintage Warmer as well, which makes it basically, I think it's sort of like a distortion compressor unit that also sort of doubles the sound, and it basically gives it sort of more of an analog sound, like it's going for a bit of sort of analog gear rather than it sounding, that sort of digital dry sound.
If you have it muted like this and then turn the effects on, you'll see the difference. It adds a lot of sort of nice warmth to it,
like
volume and warmth. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got the Amen snare, which is the most used sample in music ever, I think.
Yeah, which we use that for the build-up. So that's like the last part of the drums.
It gives it quite a nice sort of urban. Got a quite nice urban sound.
Yeah, yeah.
Really swung as well.
Yeah. Sort of works quite well rather than just a typical sort of drummer boy sort of snare that you'll hear in the sort of the EDM stuff. We sort of tried to move away from that in this track.
We quite often use the sort of 909 snares, but we thought in this one, because we're trying to do something a bit different with the kind of urban influences, we thought it would be nice to use some samples which like drum and bass producers use.
Yeah, it's in two parts basically. So
this is the first part.
It's like the second roll almost.
It's kind of like a double hit roll which has been chopped. So you've got 2 hits in each part.
Yeah.
Where we've chopped it.
It's slightly loose, but it gives it like a sort of a live feel.
So you can kind of see, yeah, it is loose. They're not exactly quantized, but it does give it that nice swung sound which we were looking for at the time. So that's the first part of it. And
then you've got the dead hit snare which brings the whole thing into.
Second part is just the snare hit which is on the beat basically. So if we highlight them both, you can see how they interact there. You've got the hit, and then you've got the double hit.
Quieter sort of shuffle almost,
which is swung quite heavily.
And then we basically group that together and put on the vintage warmer again, which sort of squashed it nicely together and gets the levels nice and right.
Yeah, so it's driving it slightly there.
That's just the one on the beat on its own. And then if you put the other one in, you can hear that. Yeah. It sort of squashes it together, keeps it nice and fat. And then we just put a little reverb again on the sound, so they both sound like they're in the same place basically.
Again, this is just the standard reverb A, which is really old actually, but
it's got quite a nice colouring to it though, because sometimes you can use some of like the Lexicon reverbs or the Waves ones, and they're almost like too silent for some stuff.
Too clean. They work really nicely on vocals, but sometimes for drum sounds it's good to have a reverb that's actually got some sort of
colour to it.
Yeah, colour. One which isn't as transparent, and sometimes the cheaper reverbs can be better for that, because you can really hear the reverb.
Yeah,
which is a nice thing.
Yeah, because the other ones can be a bit too floaty. But yeah, so that's pretty much all the drums. We've got one more percussive sound that we use. It's literally just a tiny snippet that we used on the. I think it's on the beat. It's just a tiny vocal snippet. If you just solo it there, which is just sort of hitting on the thing.
It kind of sounds like a synth within the track. You would think it was a synth, but it's quite nice to use vocals, so you get an organic sound which is hard to get with an actual synth.
Yeah, but it's doing the same job as like what a synth would do, but I don't know, there's just something about when you use like a real sound that it gives it like an organic sound without you sort of knowing it is, if you know what I mean. It's a strange one, but we tend like to do that quite a lot basically.
And this is just on the beat literally.
Yeah, so with the vocal chop that we've got, we've had that sort of filtering up from
the start
right
of the
from
track.
The start, which sort of holds. If you get all the drums in and that, I'll show you. It starts off low and then builds up right up to the crescendo from where the bass drops basically. So it's coming up slowly. Just on there.
You can hear it coming in now.
Yeah.
Maybe not through the microphone.
Just on the beat there. We have a little bit of distortion on it with the vintage warmer, and also a little reverb on it again, just to sort of blend it into the track, give it a nice little space.
That's using the Roomworks reverb, which is another one that just comes with Cubase.
Yeah.
And then we've got the filter on it. It's just automated.
Yeah.
That's on Homicide, and it's just automated here, just to open slowly up to the first mini breakdown.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the drums and the blip, basically. after we got the drum bits, we wanted to make a nice big build up for before it drops into the bass, basically. On that, we used Trilogy, basically. So this is how it sounds. A bit like a car alarm, but
yeah.
So basically, what it is, it's the Trilogy with the Mini Moog Sawtooth and it's like a generated square wave. They're both playing at the same time, and then what we did is we assigned the LFO to the pitch, and literally, as you can hear, you can see here we're moving the rate up. So it gets more and more intense and faster and builds into...
So the pitch is bending, slowly getting faster and faster, just bending quicker and quicker.
Yeah, so until it's sort of ridiculously fast, but works quite nice into a building sound.
Yeah, good build-up, yeah.
And on that we have...
That's all automated. You can see the automation.
Yeah, sorry.
If you look at the, if you double click on this part.
Yeah, this where the synth's actually quite old. Where the synth's actually quite old. The automation, we did it on the MIDI, like the Jordan as like a MIDI event, so you can see it sort of going up there, getting faster and faster. So I think there is a way of actually assigning that MIDI controller to the automation, so you could actually draw it on the screen. But as we've been working with both things for a long time, we've basically it was just easier because we knew that controller. It was just easier just to draw it in.
You can see there where the rate just gets faster and faster progressively,
yeah.
And that was recorded in manually. That's why it's a little bit bumpy, but it sounds great. So there's no point in messing with it really.
Basically, we've cut the bottom end off the sound. We used we've actually got two EQs. We cut it off on Cubase, but then we used the Oxford.
The Oxford EQs works a bit better, I'd say. It gives an actual dead cut on these low frequencies where the Cubase EQ maybe not so good. Yeah. Although we were working on an older version of Cubase, so now the EQs could be better. Yeah.
We also used the Vintage Warmer, as we always do, on some of our sounds, which just again gives it that sort of analog sort of dirtier sound. We've got a bit of a bit crusher on there as well, which just sort of makes it sound slightly sort of.
And the graphics aren't.
Yeah, the graphics aren't loading because we've been using a newer. This was made on the older computer, which is actually on was 32-bit, and now we've moved to 64-bit. Some of the plugins on the graphics aren't working. We can actually hear them, but for some reason when we try and open them, the graphics aren't very good. But anyway, so we use that just to dirty it up a bit, and it's also got a character. It's another sort of exciter plugin basically, which sort of brings out the top end.
This plugin's from our power core unit, which is down here. Yeah. I'm not sure if you can see that. It's a rack mount.
It's good for bringing out the sort of top end, adding sort of harmonics onto the top end. Yeah. Yeah, and then we basically use the Lexicon reverb just to give it that a little bit of space, and that reverb actually is a little bit cleaner than the one on Cubase. So it doesn't colour the sound so much. It's just sort of sits there and puts the sound nicely in the mix, but without colouring it.
It's quite nice to use lots of different reverbs, we find, because if you just use the same one on every track,
they can sound like they're all in the same space.
Yeah, it's nice to have some, as well as using different size reverbs, it's good to use actual whole different plug-in ranges.
Just adding on to that riser sound, we've got some one sort of white noise build up,
which again, this is from our sample pack
which we made. Yeah,
we made this by basically assigning an envelope to the pitch of the sound. So you just hold a note down, and then the envelope slowly makes the pitch just go up, like just slowly up.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it's also got a filter on it as well, which starts low and filters up.
Opens up, yeah. But that was all done previously.
Yeah, that's on our sample pack, and it's got white noise as well in the same sound. We made quite a few of them for sample packs.
Hasn't got any extra EQ or anything on that. It's just how it is from the sample pack.
It's handy having sounds like that because you know they work, and it means when you're writing quickly and the ideas are coming, you don't have to sit there and spend half an hour making one sound because you've already done it. So it's quite handy.
It's also got a second riser that with it, which is more white noisy. Which is sort of in the same vein, but it's a little bit more, almost like a reverb track of the other one, where it's sort of more airy almost, which gives it that feel. And then the last part was just we had a little vocal snippet and we reversed it.
I think we added reverb to the vocal and then recorded it and then reversed the whole sample, so you get the reverse reverb
coming up,
rising.
Yeah, so that. Which is just on the end before the bass kicks.
It fills in the gap quite nicely, before it drops in.
Yeah.
There is another little sound.
It's the
here.
vocal that. There's
There's another effect sound here, which is
it's like a boom, I think.
It's kind of a boom sound, I think. It's a sub. Yeah, it's a white noise and also a kind of sub bass
dive sound, which we actually got that off a sample CD. It's called Evolution Effects or something, and it was just like a hitter on that, which is cool.
Yeah.
So, then the only other part of the build is we used a sample CD to get a vocal that just says "Big Bad Bassline Sounds," which is this one here. If you just hear that.
Big Bad Bassline Sound.
And what we did is at the end of where it says "sound," we went in and pitched the sound down so it bends just that last part of the vocal. So basically, that's the original. It would just say "Big Bad Bassline Sound," and then what we did, we snipped the end part off and pitched that with Cubase.
And to do that, what you do, you click on the sample, you go to Audio Process and Pitch Shift.
Yeah. Then switch it to the envelope mode.
Switch to envelope, and then
you can draw in.
You have to grab that, pull that right down.
Yeah, and then you draw in the range, so how far you want it to go down.
So
I can't remember if it was about 5. I think it was something.
Can't remember exactly what we did, but if you set this to what you want, and it would make the pitch drop throughout the sample until it hits what you've selected in the range box.
We did that just because it's got that sort of almost that sort of old school record stop. It's quite subtle, but it gives it that sort of record stopping sound where it's everything goes down, which is quite cool. We've got a vintage warmer again, which is like the sort of distortion unit to rough it up a bit. We've got a bit of bit crush, which is also sort of adding some sort of slight high-end fuzz, basically, doesn't it? Yeah.
What we're doing with the bit crusher, we've got the sample divider is just on 1.
Yeah, so it's not
dropping
it too much.
It's just doing a very small amount of adding a bit of sort of dirt to it, and then what we quite often use the depth control here to just it changes the bit rate.
Yeah.
So if you turn that down, it just adds a load of fuzz to it.
It basically makes it sound like an old sample.
Big Bad Bassline Sound. Big Bad Bassline Sound.
See, if I put it right down, it adds loads of fuzz.
Yeah.
But if you put it on full mix, you see here how
much it affects it. Yeah.
But we want that, but subtly. So we turn the bit rate up a bit and pull the mix down.
You've got half the original signal and half the bit crush.
So you've got the fuzz, but it's not overpowering. You can still hear the sample.
Yeah.
We use that a lot.
We've also got a little reverb on there and an octaver. So basically, it's got it's basically playing twice. So it's got the normal original signal, and then it's got it playing an octave down, but just slightly quieter. So it's basically adds some bass to it. So
and on here you can adjust the volume of each of the original signal, which we've got on full. So you can, and then
That's a lower octave. That's the first octave down, then the second octave down.
You've got 2 octaves, but we've got the second octave. We've got the 0 because it's just
that's turned off. Too low.
So if you listen, if we turn down our direct sound, you can hear what it's like. A little. I'll turn that up so you can hear it a bit more. It's just like a really low version of it.
Yeah.
It kind of adds a rumble to it.
Yeah.
It's subtle again, but it just adds a bit of extra bass frequencies to the sound.
And a bit of dirt as well, to be honest.
Yeah. Sorry guys, we've run out of time, but if you want to check out the rest of this, make sure you get the latest copy of Computer Music.
Download over 30 exclusive plugins. Get hundreds of pro quality samples and power up your production skills with in-depth tutorials. We break it down for you step by step, and you'll see exactly how it's done in expert video guides and producer masterclass sessions with pro producers. Get all this and more with Computer Music Magazine every month on iPad and iPhone, PC and Mac, Android, and in print.